Well, I think we'll go ahead and start with what we've got. Hopefully, some more folks will drift in. Uh, Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Glad you could come, Fred.
Yeah, I'm glad I could be here. We're going to go through the program that we had planned, mainly because it is being streamed and will be recorded on YouTube, because there are several people who have already told me they wanted to be here this morning and are unable to do so. But our list of presenters this morning are the delegates to this year's General Assembly in Baltimore, Maryland. Myself, Barbara, Larry Metzroth, his granddaughter Lavender, and Alan Davis and Sally DuGar. The sixth member of our group would be Carol Teal, but she's in North Carolina this morning accepting an honorary founder's trophy for an organization that she started 25 years ago. So Carol is not with us today. Sally, will you light our chalice, please? Oh, well, let's start, because I know Lavender is going to the OWL class today, and so I'm going to let her start, and we'll go from there. Lavender? And this is Lavender and Larry. This was their first GA, so they're sharing their experiences from fresh eyes.
Hi, I have a couple things, including the Maryland flag. I like the Maryland flag a lot. So, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. So this is going to have to be quick because I have to go to OWL. I'll try to make time at the end for any questions that you might have. But yeah, so I've decided to start from us going to Baltimore. I went from Washington, D.C. because I had been hanging out there with my family on a vacation. We found the train pretty easily, got on there. The train ride was really fun. I enjoyed it, and it did have a lot of scenery that I liked. Once we got there, we got to the station. It was really hard to find the train, but we ended up being able to help a minister from another church, which was very fun. Once we got to the hotel, we pretty much checked in and got dinner, and then we went to the exhibition hall, I think it was called, and I found this one table with a bunch of board games. That was really fun, really enjoyed it. And then another kid told me about ribbon collecting, which the neck thing helped. If it wasn't for the neck thing, it would only go to about a little lower than my knee. But collected a bunch of ribbons. Then I went to the kids one the next day, or the kids thing. It was hard to find it, and it was in a whole nother hotel, so very hard to find. But once I got there, it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it there. We had fun. Then the next day, went again. There was this really fun game. It was like a relay game, rock, paper, scissors, and we would run along a path. Kind of complicated, don't have enough time to explain, sadly. But but that was fun. The food that they served us was really good, except one day there was moldy celery. But that was really fun. I did get the sniffles on the third day we were there. So we ended up looking around town, which was really fun, and I did like how there were in case you got a little bit sick and you didn't really want to go just so that you didn't infect anyone. There were other things to do. I really enjoyed that. So we ended up looking at a bunch of ships, and the picture up there, that's me sitting on a cannon on the first ship we went to. But it was very fun. There were 4 ships. One that was built during the Revolutionary War and then used in the War of 1812. A submarine, a Coast Guard ship, and then a ship from Pearl Harbor, I think. That may not be correct. But that was really fun. We ended up talking a bunch about history after we went on those ships. I also saw a movie and got a bunch of ice cream. But that's pretty much what happened 3rd and 4th day. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Would you go again?
Probably.
Okay, that's a good recommendation.
It was really fun, and I think it was enjoyable. It was worth the trip. Yes.
Did you eat any crabs?
No. I somehow did not eat a single crab. Yes.
Were you able to go out on the ocean a little bit?
Other than on the ships,
The ship stuff, yeah.
yeah, no.
What did you talk about with the other kids?
We mostly played games. There was this one game called Mao. If you want, you can look it up. Just rules do change, and it might be hard to find.
Would you teach us that sometime?
If I had more time, then yes.
Yes, okay.
It's technically, you don't even need to know the rules. I tell one other person the rules, and then we see how long it takes for you to find out the other rules.
We should do that at a community night.
Yeah, that would be very fun. I think that, yeah, it's a great group, though you'd probably want to do different groups. Oh, right. So, a couple of my badges. I have like 3 from, I have,
Oh, stand up there.
Here, you need to stand near the front, but here, you can.
yeah, just,
We're ready to see you.
Oh, yeah.
so, these ones are all handmade, all of those. But 3 of them for the Order of the Carrot, pretty much a thing that me and a couple kids created with the help of the person running the group. It was a cult, but I'm using the old version of cult, which is a religion within a religion. So it is like a UU. It's like an extension of a UU religion, pretty much. Of the UU religion, sorry. Blech. But that was very fun. We had different like roles, and I think most people who were in it enjoyed it. Do I have any more time left?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Yeah. Any other questions about that?
Thank you for sharing.
Great.
Larry, would you like to add anything?
It's a tough act to follow. I'm 76 years old, and it's the first time I've gone to a
Closer.
Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. Even though I've been active in the church since I was in college. And I actually, David talked this morning about agnostic theology. I actually participated in the Unitarian Church for political reasons more than religious reasons. And I continue to pledge because they make so much trouble for the Republican Party. It was a wonderful experience. I didn't want Lavender's first General Assembly to be when she was in her 70s. So I invited her to come with me. That made it a lot more fun for me. It's the first time that I've been around 3,000 Unitarians at once, and as was mentioned this morning, it drew some laughter. It was quite a crazy experience. I was very impressed by the diversity of the people who attended the General Assembly. There were many people of different colors, different abilities. We gathered in sessions that were inspirational, and it had different effects on different people, but we all enjoyed it. The particular sessions I enjoyed the most dealt with the UU churches in Europe. I've had the benefit of being able to travel and work overseas a lot, and the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Paris and the Unitarian House meetings in Singapore were anchors in my life at the time, and I enjoyed the sessions where they discussed the interaction of the European congregations and fellowships with the old Transylvanian Unitarians, who are very active, have a high school in Cluj, Romania, and actively interact with the European Unitarian Universalists. And I was so thrilled to get connected with that again. The other thing that I'll mention before I pass it on to Fred and Alan and Sally and Barb is there was one thing that I found very off-putting. They were extremely militant about masking, and I found it to be extreme, and I found it to dismiss my reason. I would not go to a session with a room full of people if I thought I was going to infect someone. So I thought I could make a decision about whether or not I needed to wear a mask. That was the only really off-putting thing. The rest of it, though, was very enjoyable. And yes, I would go again. Any questions? Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned UU of Europe, Singapore. So was this just for the U.S.? I apologize for showing up late. And I know, like, in our service, we talk about lighting the chalice like other churches in the country, but I wasn't sure.
I wasn't using my theater voice loud enough.
I heard the question,
okay, that's
but
fine.
I don't know whether everyone
Sure.
in the...
So the question is whether... Oh, and that. Okay. All right. And AI is going to analyze this, I hope. My question was, you mentioned UU of Europe and mentioned Singapore. Was this just for congregations in the U.S.? Because I'm not familiar with UUA in general.
No, it was an international assembly. I know that for a fact because the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Paris sent delegates to the General Assembly while I was a member of that fellowship. There's a large Unitarian presence in Great Britain, in Germany, mainly due to the military personnel who are there, in Italy, in Spain, and there are a number of fellowships, and also there's the European Unitarian Universalists, which brings them all together twice a year for retreats at different locations throughout Europe. If you ever get a chance, they're wonderful events. And not nearly as overpowering as General Assembly, but very Unitarian Universalist.
That's great. Thank you.
Just for the statistics, there were a little bit over 3,000 people in attendance in Baltimore. That was from 472 congregations and 8 foreign countries. Sally, would you like to light our chalice?
I had a question for Larry. So I don't know Lavender's age, but how did she fit in with these other kids? Were the kids younger or older?
If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the heart, in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Lao Tse. And, new and fancy ways to do things. Then you have to get it there without it going.
Lavender is 10 years old, and she's quite precocious. She did mention something about the children's activities being distant from the rest of the General Assembly, and that was true. And I don't know what caused the physical arrangements to be made the way that they were. She was eligible for the middle school class, middle school group, even though she's only in 5th grade this year, but she qualified age-wise for that. There were probably about 15 children in that group. They looked to me like they ranged in age from 10 up to maybe about 14 years old. There was a good mixture of genders. She had a remarkably good time attending it. I do believe they should make an effort to try and get the children closer to the action the next time, but I'm not privy to the physical limitations that they had to deal with there.
One of the purposes that Barb and I were there for was to honor Stan Stefancic. This is not the picture that was used at the General Assembly. This is the picture that's more like what we remember him as.
Mariana, his widow that we're friends with, lives in California and was supposed to meet us, and we were to be her surrogate family at the events. And at the last minute, she called and was unable to attend. But Fred and I were there and were welcomed warmly by the UUA staff. We had the pleasure of attending a luncheon for all the people who had lost ministers up until that during the year. And so we attended the luncheon, and you can talk about whatever else you want to talk about honoring Stan.
Yeah, it was really a very special thing that we were doing. The service of the living tradition was the same evening as the luncheon had been that we attended, and it is to honor those people. They actually have a period of time during it in which they show the pictures of each one of the ministers that has passed in the last year. It's also when they welcome new ministers into fellowship, into preliminary, that's the word I'm looking for, preliminary fellowship, and also final fellowship. They honor the ministers who are retiring or have completed 25 years of service. So it's a big deal. And one of the things that was going on was they had a special reserve section for the survivors. And strangely enough, it wasn't in the front row. It was clear down at the end. We found out later why it was down at the end, because it was where the exit ramp from the main stage was. And so we got to sit there and watch all these new ministers and the group as they came by. And if you noticed the picture before that, that was Greta. If any of you remember Greta Strobel, who was here. She's now a full-fledged minister, and she was sitting with us. So there. Barb, do you want to talk about the program?
That program?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I pride myself on really having great attention to detail. As an example, this morning when I walked in, I said, "Austin, you got a haircut." And he said, "You noticed." He had a fresh haircut. Another friend this week I noticed had on an oracle ring, and I pointed that out. So I really am good. We sat for 2 hours in the service of the living tradition, which is held in the evening, holding that program, that order of service. So when we came back, I was putting it up on the bulletin board, and I looked at the front of it, and at the bottom, it says that the person who did the artwork was Reverend David Schwartz of Boulder UCB. I had never seen it before. It's still out on our bulletin board if you want to look at it, but that's the words of the jet pig, and that's David's artwork. Yes, that's true. And if you know who, well, you can turn around because it's on the back of our volunteer shirts, the same words. So that's what that's about. And the service of the living tradition is one of my favorites. And generally speaking, usually it's widows because of the age of the ministers that are currently dying. Light a special memorial candle that's up there along with the flaming chalice that's absolutely beautiful. That was when Sally was giving her chalice lighting. So,
And although this comment really doesn't apply to the Living Tradition service, some of you may have been here on June 12th when they streamed the Sunday service from Baltimore. And we've got a couple of video clips that you may remember having seen. But Bob, could we see those 2 clips? If you were there for the other show, for the service when it was being shown, you may remember there was a flag dancer, and he came by and he gave this young woman that flag. It's his baby. It was pure joy. It really was. Any questions or anything to be said about that? Well, let's move on to Alan and Sally describing the delegate experience. Start us off.
Well, I grew up in the Congregational Church, and my dad was a Congregational minister, and I happened to get a special thing here called Preacher's Kid, which I think officially meant that your father was a Unitarian minister, but I just sort of cheated and said, preacher's kid's a preacher's kid.
Yeah, really.
And so I had heard of Unitarians, and the Congregationalists, which are now the United Church of Christ, have always felt that they had a shared history with the Unitarians. I think the Unitarians are less embracing of Plymouth Rock and the Pilgrims and so on. But when I became a Unitarian and first went to General Assembly, I was so moved by being in the presence of 3,000 Unitarian Universalists. Because my experience had been when people say, what kind of church do you go to? And I would say Unitarian Universalist. They say, never heard of that. I mean, we're a tiny denomination. And so in those early years, I think the things that impressed me was the beauty of the music and the energy, the eloquence of the speakers. You've been to more of these General Assemblies than I have. I've probably been to 6 and in my life. You went,
I don't know, 12 or 20. I don't know. A lot.
yeah. But going as a delegate gives you a whole different understanding of what the Unitarian Universalist Association is. I mean, this annual meeting is a display of our singing, our eloquence, our social action, but the organization is basically the legal entity that is in charge of defining the denomination, to defining what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. And it is a covenantal approach in which we're all part of the denomination governed by democratic principles. And so we, in effect, if we're a delegate, we're authorized by the congregation to represent our congregation and vote on the things that are defining and focusing of what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. And so, to me, that's a perspective that is quite different from just being a member of the church. And you grew up a Unitarian, so this is part of your long-term identity.
Yes. Move, please. Nobody can hear me, even in a microphone. So, yes, I grew up in the Unitarian Society of Cleveland and didn't really know what church was. I just went. But over the years, I got really involved and at some point decided I would go to Star King, and then I decided I wouldn't go to Star King. Well, I went to Star King and I gave that up. But the delegate experience. Well, I like being a delegate because it's part of a lot of what makes us our governance is part of what makes us who we are. And in order for that to work, we need people to go to meetings and vote. And I just like to sit in what we used to call plenary, now it's called general session. And I just enjoy the meetings and listening to what's going on and what's new and voting on stuff. So I guess that'll do for now.
The theme of this year's General Assembly was meeting the moment. And I thought today's service was a perfect example of Reverend Schwartz meeting the moment. The idea was that we had initial sessions on what is the moment that we're experiencing at present. How would you describe this moment in the history of our religion, in the history of our country, in the history of the world? How do we see this moment? And then the second series of sessions was on meeting the moment. I mean, understanding the moment. How did we get to this point? And how do we understand the various forces at work? And then the third step was meeting the moment, which is how do we respond to this moment that we're in now? And for Reverend Schwartz to say the moment just changed this week with a high school shooting and with the assassination of a Republican activist. And so how do we understand, how do we respond? And to me, the thing that's uniquely defining about the Unitarian Universalist answer to these questions is that they're grounded in love. It's never just a political response. It's never just bringing power to counter power. We're constrained and motivated by putting love at the center. And this is also a recent idea for us. For many, many years, we had our 7 principles. They came out of General Assembly. They were voted on by General Assembly about 18 years ago. And then the denomination made a decision. It was time to revisit those 7 principles. And they have a reforming of that, which is expressed very well, I think, in our church's not covenant, but our mission. And it ends up always with love. And so we're called upon to act, but from a position of love. This year, the issues facing delegates, one of them was to identify a topic for discussion that would result in an action statement in the next in a few years in a future General Assembly. And so we had 3 different issues brought to us, and we were to vote on them. And the one getting the greatest votes was supposed to be a subject for top discussion here. And I was very surprised by them. One of them was the issue of fatness. A whole number of people came to the microphone and said, you know, years ago, people were reluctant to say, I'm gay. And now we have people constantly saying, I'm gay, I'm trans, I'm bisexual, and saying it with pride as a source of identity. And so we had a group of many people saying, I'm fat, and fatness is an aspect of my identity that I'm often denied space where I can sit, access to places that are built for people my size, and we're no longer going to be embarrassed and feeling like we have a medical condition. We're here to say we want to be recognized and accommodated. And I thought, wow, this is a new idea to me. Then another one that was brought up was the idea that there's still a form of slavery going on in prisons, and most visibly seen in the South, where you have chain gangs of prisoners who are out cutting cotton, cleaning highways, doing work for which they are not compensated but are required to do. And so the statement was the 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished enslavement except as punishment for crime. And so in the 13th Amendment, slavery is still allowed if you're in prison. And so they said, we want to abolish this. We want to embrace the abolition of this idea. And so they called it the abolition topic. And so the third one was housing shortage. So we had, as delegates, a lengthy discussion on these three topics and came to a vote. And the one that won with the most votes was abolition of forced labor in prisons. And so that's a topic that they're encouraging congregations to discuss and to turn into some sort of resolution in a future GA. So that's one example of what we did as delegates. Do you have any, want to add to that? Any questions? How many delegates did we have?
How many delegates does UUCB have?
Was it 6?
I thought it was 6. But are we limited by the size of our congregation?
Yeah, I'll explain how
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah. Thank you for
Each year in February, they take what's called the congregational poll, in which we explain how big our budget is and how many members we have. And based on that, the number of delegates is assigned. This year we gained 1. We've been 5. This year we had 6, and we're pushing to get 7 next year. We're very close to moving into the next category. So, but that's, and I'll talk about the budget piece of it and what that represents in a little bit later.
So you're designated as delegates, but I want to go. Can I just go? Thank you.
Yes.
Right, you just can't vote.
I can't- Yeah, how do you get to become a delegate?
Tell Fred you want to. That's a good
Tell the
answer.
chief honcho, got it.
Right, if you're, I am the denominational affairs rep for the church, and I usually go around in in March and April and talk to people who said they're going to the assembly, would they be willing to be delegates? But next year is virtual, and you can be a delegate virtually, so.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, we're back up. This General Assembly was my 22nd. This was.
My 23rd.
It was her 23rd. But it's also our 18th time as volunteers. And that's what we'd like to talk about a little bit. The volunteer experience. I passed around the program there. You can see how many workshops and things that are available. It is like taking a drink from a fire hose. You spend 4 days. The 4 days that you spend in General Assembly is intense. You cannot do it all. So my personal experience with this is, I think I've been to all the workshops because sometimes there's a similar theme through most of them. But I really dig being a volunteer. My particular area is the Ask Me, the local information desk, and I get to sit out in front of, in the main entrance to the hall and talk to people and greet all my friends, which is the best part. And I very often get the comment, "This is the local information desk and you're from Boulder, Colorado?" And they say, "Well, how come?" It's simple. One is I've been doing it since 2012. And the other is I've discovered over time that people who live in the city probably haven't been downtown. And so once in a while we have the real pleasure of having a volunteer that comes in who is works with the Chamber of Commerce or something like that. But it's a great experience, and like I said, we get to see all 3,000 people go by every day.
This year it was really interesting because we saw people we hadn't seen, of course, since we were in Pittsburgh, and a bunch of our people wanted our picture taken with them, so we have several that have been sent to us. Deb was my boss in the volunteer office. The volunteer office answers questions, gets all the lost and found items. Normally speaking, we get probably 250 items. I came up with a system years ago with colored stickies, and it gets a number. You have a book, someone brings something they found, put where it was found, and we have the book of who lost things. And so we put things together as they come in and go out. And seriously, we get dentures, we get cell phones, we get hearing aids, umbrellas. There's no end to the things that we collect in the lost and found.
And water bottles.
Oh, water bottles. Oh, yes. And in the past, we kind of kept that table up front so people could see if it was their stuff. And we had a woman come in one year and say, "That's my bracelet." And it was a very expensive bracelet it was gold and with jewels. So we had her sign her name and away she went. Then someone came and said, "I lost a bracelet." So now we keep the lost and found goodies out of sight because people you use aren't perfect either. We had one poor couple this year that were fairly newly married, but they were an older couple, and she lost, I guess, an incredible wedding set, and she'd stuck it in her bra for safekeeping when I don't know what she had attended, but anyway, and it was never found. But this year we only had, as I recall, 60 lost and found items. Normally we have 250, 300 things that come in. So that's one of the things we do, answer a lot of questions. For instance, this year we handed out Meet the Moment t-shirts for the people that were involved with that. So just a lot of stuff comes to us. We make signs. We put out signs all over a convention hall. And it's just a great place to volunteer. And I've been doing that since Fort Worth, Texas. I have a charm bracelet that has every GA we've been to. And it started when I got a boot from who I was working for in Fort Worth. And generally, at the end of our time at GA, we used to go find a jewelry store. But now Fred can order things online, and my crab was there when we got home from Baltimore this year. So,
Okay,
Bob, could we have the next slide?
oh, I have a question. Yes.
okay, you say you're volunteers, but you're delegates, so,
No, we weren't delegates.
Okay.
We've been delegates.
You've been delegates.
I guess we were. We did vote online.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so last year and this year, I started doing this locally here in Boulder, having the chalice put on my thumbs. And I knew that the volunteer shirt this year was purple. So that's my newest tradition. And the last morning we were there, we went to breakfast, and Reverend Sophia, who's the head reverend of our whole denomination, was having breakfast at a table next to ours. And when she got up to leave, she and her partner, who's the vice president, came over to talk to us about GA. And she noticed my thumbs and said, "Oh, where did you get that done?" And so I told her, and so I said, "I don't like the new flaming chalice that the UUA used." I said, "I like the old one." And Sophia said, "I do too, I'm a 2-ring UU." And we had also had breakfast with her, which you'll hear about later. And I said, so I can go back and say I had breakfast with you twice this year. So that's what that's about.
She's so impressive.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All our presidents are.
Yeah, the presidents have always been one of the interesting things is hearing from them and the dynamicism that exists in our leadership is wonderful. The last little piece here was I was going to talk about ribbons and honors. Now, my ribbons have a little different than what Lavender showed you, but each one has a meaning. And the first one is a volunteer, the second one is ask me, the third one is delegate. Those are the basics. We all have those. But we keep on going. Local area task force. More than 20 GAs. That's a new one this year. And then finally we get down to the annual program fund and the leadership congregations, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Larry said he did not get his ribbons.
I got you. Oh, there they are. Oh, your ribbon. Thank you.
One of the honors that UUCB got this year was we were invited to breakfast with the president. This breakfast was for, there was 4 members of each congregation that they call a leadership congregation, was invited to breakfast with the president. I would say there were probably over 100 people there. There are 2 levels. There's an honor congregation, which means a congregation which has met its fair share donation to the UUA is considered an honor congregation. But if you've been an honor congregation for more than 10 years, they raise the classification to leadership, and it's the leadership congregations that are invited to this breakfast. We made the leadership level 5 years ago. The first one we were invited to was in Portland. So I'm very proud of that, of us. But the interesting thing about sitting at breakfast that morning was they did something different this year that they hadn't done in past years. They had the tables arranged by region, and you were asked to go sit in the Western region or whatever region of the 5 regions of the UUA. Well, we were over at the very west end of the patio. That's figures just on the outside edge. And there were 15 or 16 people that were sitting in the Pacific Western region at those tables. Of those 15 or 16, 8 of them were from Boulder County. Both the fellowship and we are considered leadership congregations. So that's the whole Western region, and 8 of us, half of the crowd was from 2 churches. I thought that was a pretty remarkable thing. So congratulations to all of you for that.
Fred, where's the next
Next year, 2026 General Assembly will be virtual. And we probably will do what we did last year. We'll meet in the Sky Room and just participate via the Zoom, not Zoom, but YouTube hookup. They've got their own special handler for all of this. Look, we will be looking for volunteers. I will be looking for delegates, so that's coming up. And then in 2027, the meeting will be in San Jose, California. And Barb and I are hoping we can get in at least one more. So, any questions? Anything you want to talk about? Well, I guess that wraps it up.
Thank the few of you that came.
Yes,
Thank you.
we do appreciate your coming, and would like feedback on this format as opposed to a formal service, which we've done in the past, so that you have it. We want you to be part of it too.